pictures that described it as Marseille or Paris of the East. All these characteristics were at their peak in the second half of the 19th century. The city experienced an unprecedented growth in every aspect. Its shape changed with the construction of quay and the enlargement of main streets, the introduction of facilities such as railway, 1858, gas, 1862, and electricity, 1888. The political framework, with the proclamations of Hadi Sharif, 1839, Hadi Humayun, 1856, the creation of Catholic and Protestant millets in 1831 and 1850 respectively, along with the long-established capitulation acts, ensured the prosperity of the city's inhabitants, Levantines included. It is exactly in this period that the Levantines show up in travel literature as a distinct demographic entity. However, that does not necessarily mean they could be easily described. When it came to distinguish the Levantines from the other communities, several terms applied. The ones most frequently used were Europeans or Catholics. In the traveler's eyes, a Levantine was either a descendant of European immigrants that settled in the Ottoman Empire many generations ago and gradually cut off the ties with the mother country, or an Ottoman subject, mostly Greek or Armenian, that married to a European or Levantine. In terms of religion, a Levantine was mainly Catholic, Protestant, or even Greek Orthodox, provided that he was the offspring of a marriage, like the ones already mentioned. For the local population, it was much simpler, both foreigners and settlers, to be called Franks. The very term Levantine did not seem to be very popular. Not all visitors are comfortable with this blurry image. In an era where the European countries based their existence on stereotypes, national awareness, and ethnic purity, the characteristics of the Levantines placed them on the margins of West and East, not really fitting into any of both. That explains perhaps why there are descriptions from travelers such as Ruprecht, the Crown Prince of Bavaria, in 1894 that are not at all flattering. They are a mixture of all Mediterranean races, Oriental in mentality but polished with European varnish, stateless, frivolous, voluble, and like-minded. Having said this, he continues in a surprisingly different tone by praising the Levantine women. Amongst them, a man often meets dazzling beauty. They appear in the street in the most elegant Parisian dresses, but on the contrary, in the house they dress up with negligence. The lingual environment was equally diverse. In Izmir, you could listen to people speak in a dozen different European languages, among which French, English, Italian, and Greek prevailed. This situation is vividly illustrated by Frederick Millingen, also known as Osman Bey, an Englishman who converted to Islam and became an Ottoman officer, who wrote, "A Levantine family could travel around the world without moving from its place." The Levantine pronunciation does not escape uncriticized. Deschamps, in 1890, writes, "As the Levantine women walk on by, you can hear them discussing, asking and responding, in strange French, recent neologisms with old-fashioned expressions of the old merchants who left Marseille or Toulon for the long voyage towards Izmir. They close their phrases with abrupt changes of intonation, syllables come out faster by the sudden use of provincial accent, the R's roll in the flow of the speech like pebbles swept along by the torrent." Although it is difficult to calculate the exact population of the Levantines in the Near East, due to the lack of official census, in cities with thriving communities such as Izmir, the accounts of travelers give us some very indicative figures. 25,000, or 17% of the population, 20,000, or 11%, 16,000, 25,000, by travelers such as Ross, Slars, Murray, and early Raven. Amongst them, the Italians summed up to more than a third, with the English and French following, while the Germans, Dutch, and the rest came next. The actual figure of the Levantines in Izmir does not seem to change dramatically over the years, but still the percentage tends to decline, mainly due to the rise of other ethnic groups, predominantly of the Greeks. The Levantine dwellings were situated on the part of Izmir that was most convenient for their commercial activities. Consulates, warehouses, and lodgings formed a separate neighborhood that stretched along the seafront and the harbor, called the Frankish or European Quarter, with its main thoroughfare, the Frank Street, officially known as Achilleas Chatziconstantinou. The advantage of combining housing and shops or warehouses in a single structure that also included a wharf at the water side created a picturesque site for the visitors who could not help but admire the enterprising spirit of their owners. This picture was about to change dramatically after the completion of quay in 1874, when the city expanded towards the sea and new luxurious edifices such as clubs, theaters, and hotels were erected on the seafront. By then, the Frankish quarter was deprived of many of its prominent residents that preferred to build new houses on the quay and villas on the suburbs, just like the foreign consuls did before them, the French in Burnabat, the Dutch in Sevdikoi, and the English in Buza. There they had plenty of space for recreation, especially during the summer, shelter from epidemics that often broke out, and the opportunity to display their wealth. Upon the arrival at Izmir, a foreigner would normally seek the company of a Levantine. In fact, in the days where there were only few and modest boarding houses or hotels, visitors from Europe were accommodated in Levantine houses, and in a sense felt like home. Paul Odell, in 1885, describes a dinner that Mr. and Mrs. Kramer invited him to. I quote, "They are definitely friendly people. They make us with great cordiality the honor of a great meal admirably served. The copious menu, after the regular appetizers, included a beautiful fish with mayonnaise, meat fillet, artichokes in oil, a cream cake, seedless Izmir raisins, equally delicious local oranges, oven-baked figs, all this accompanied with an excellent homemade bread and a wine from Cyprus called Commander that was quite pleasant with a small taste of tar." Travelers also make special note of the fact that the members of the Levantine community were rather well off. They particularly mention their unique legal status that relieved them from direct taxation and placed them to the jurisdiction of their consulates. They also give us accounts of their professions. Deschamps describes their evening promenade along the quay. "You see them all, consular officers, Swiss bankers, German exporters, Austrian tailors, English flour manufacturers, Italian brokers, Hungarian bureaucrats, Dutch fig traders, Armenian suppliers, Greek bankers, not to mention the old notaries and treasurers that fled from their countries for unknown reasons and offer handsomely paid lessons of their mother tongues." Serge, who writes in 1880, adds, "It is typical for the Franks to make partnerships with the European traders and shipping agents, enjoying a professional freedom in doing a job best fitting their skills. For those who chose to become merchants, competition with the locals was inevitable, especially because the latter were deceitful and used means such as intrigue in order to misappropriate their fortune. While a few of them practiced law, medicine, or engineering, local trade was almost a Levantine monopoly." Ruprecht again gives us more details on the Levantines' community internal affairs, where there seemed to be a competition in terms of wealth, commercial deals, and public works, with the two main rivals being the English and the Germans. I quote, "The richest were the English, who were living in mansions at the suburb of Burnabat. Lately, German entrepreneurs are competing with them throughout Anatolia, especially on the railway construction, where they took the lead because they contend with smaller profit, show more respect for the Ottoman government's instructions, and do not have political goals. Their professional and financial status led to a widely acknowledged and respected higher social ranking that no other group of foreigners, such as the Arabs or the Persians, ever enjoyed. Moreover, the European culture and tolerance that they demonstrated is mentioned by the travelers as quite influential on the overall progress of the Ottoman state, penetrating all social classes. Levantines also expressed a keen interest in history and art. The travel guides Murray, 1873, and Bedecker, 1905, suggest to their scholarly readers that the best collections of works of art, antiquities, ancient coins, and medals were owned by persons such as James Whittle or Paul Gautin, the director of Izmir Kasaba Railway, who owned, amongst others, a fine collection of the famous Smyrna terracotta figurines that ended up in the Louvre Museum. These art lovers were always exchanging, buying and selling, thus enlarging their cabinets. This should not come as a surprise if we consider that they were amongst the few who could afford to finance researches and acquire such treasures. Moreover, all major archaeological excavations that took place in the Ottoman